للمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطاهرين ما دام ما في السماوات والأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما ينفعنا وارفعنا. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء. نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن عمل لا يرفع ومن دعاء لا يسمع. نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والإفادة والاستفادة والتمسك على الكتاب وسنة رسول صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم. وبعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. ما شاء الله، كيف حالكم؟ الحمد لله الحمد لله. Today inshallah we're beginning with Surah Hujurat. Now, so normally we have a systematic methodology that we apply when starting a new chapter. So firstly we look at the term surah, we look at the concept surah. So we've mentioned a number of times that the word surah means whole. Surah means whole, a whole. Now, then in Arabic you have two terms for a whole. The one is jidarun, which is like a low wall, and the other one is surah, which is a high wall. So the reason why a surah is referred to as a surah is because it has high and lofty meanings. Okay, so that's the first thing that we normally do. The second thing that we deliberate upon is that the surah that we're currently doing, this surah, is it a Makki surah or is it a Madani surah? Now, so you'd come to find that Suratul Hujurat is a Madani surah. In other words, so when we talk about Makki and Madani, it doesn't mean that the surah was necessarily revealed in Makkah or it was revealed in Medina. No. The Makki and Madani, basically, if it's Makki, it was before Hijrah, wherever it may have been revealed, or if it's referred to as Madani, it means it was revealed after Hijrah. So Surah Al-Hujurat is a Madani surah, it was revealed after the Hijrah. Tamam. And then quite late after the Hijrah also. Then, just from the outset, once we've classified a surah either as Makki or Madani, we get a good idea in terms of the content of the surah. So the content of a Makki surah is basically dealing with issues of belief. Issues of belief. Whereas a Madani surah, you'd find that it deals with issues of belief, but coupled with that, it deals with rules and regulations. It deals with legislation. Rules. Now, and our rules in terms of our Islamic tradition are both holistic as well as comprehensive. So the Madani chapters, over and above dealing with issues of belief, it deals with issues of legislation. And the nature of our legislation is, it is comprehensive and it is holistic. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this perfect way of life which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored us with, and He says, today I have perfected for you your religion and I have completed my bounty upon you. Okay, so all these laws we're going to see now when we look at the content in a moment, inshallah, the content of this particular surah. So we looked at the word surah, number one. We looked at whether the surah is Makki or Madani, and number three, we take out a few moments and we deliberate about the name of the surah. We deliberate about the name of the surah. Now, so the name of the surah that we have in front of us is, what is the name? Suratul Hujurat. So if you look at the word Hujurat, Al-Hujurat, the word Hujurat refers to, it is the number one, it is not a singular noun, it is a plural noun. Plural, Hujurat. What does Hujurat mean? The singular of Hujurat is Hujra. And the word hujra basically means a room. A room. Now, like in English to a degree, and probably to a large degree, but I don't have much knowledge in terms of the English language. But in Arabic, you have different rooms are given different names. Now, an upstairs room, in terms of our understanding, an upstairs room in Arabic is referred to as a ghurfa. Ghurfa, right? Like this, for example, say like a loft, ghurfa. Whereas a ground floor room is referred to as a hujra. Hujra means a room, but on the ground floor. So now, if you understand, in certain verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about ghuraf, which is the plural of the word ghurfa, in paradise. So it talks about elevated rooms, like rooms, suspended, elevated rooms in the gardens of bliss, right? But and opposite to that would be a hujra, which means a room, like a. And when we talk about the room of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we had a single story dwelling, so it would be a hujra, it would be a room. Tamam? Okay. And since we're talking about hujurat, you may want to understand what rooms are we talking about in Surah Al-Hujurat. The Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, he established a mosque. Three primary things, speaking under correction. He established a mosque when he first came. Number two, he established a marketplace. And number three, Prophet ﷺ established a constitution that would regulate, the life amongst Muslims themselves and with their neighbors in terms of non-Muslims and in terms of the Jews specifically. So the Prophet ﷺ, he had a ghuraf, hujurat. Now the hujurat is in the plural form because the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, and maybe I can just sketch this out for those who, very simple really, but just to give you an idea, just imagine that the Qibla is this way. So basically this would be the piece of land, and this here would be what they refer to as so if you who was in Medina, mashallah, quite a few. So if you basically Jannatul Baqi is over here, right? So here would be the home of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you look here, basically here would be Bab Nisa, the entrance for women folk in that time, Bab Nisa. And then here you'd have actually what they refer to as Bab al-Baqi, for obvious reasons, because this door leads to Baqi. And then you have a door here in front of Bab al-Nisa which is called Bab Jibreel, right? Bab Jibreel. So all on this side of the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to stay here. And because messengers, when they pass away, they are buried on the exact spot where they pass on. So therefore the Prophet ﷺ was buried within his chamber. Tamam? Then what happened is the Prophet ﷺ had multiple wives. So the wives, each of them had a home. But the home was really just a room. It's a small room really. Comfortable enough, but small nevertheless. Prophet ﷺ was a perfect example in terms of minimalism, which is actually a heightened sense of existence. Less is more, right? Less is more, something we need to try out. It's liberating. Having three bags is liberating. Having 5 pairs of shoes is the most liberating thing that you could ever do. 1 pair for each purpose: a running shoe, a slipper, a bathroom shoe, and whatever other shoes you need, but no more than 5. Anyway, you ladies must read a book. It's by a French author. It's called Simplicity. You'll do yourself a great favor by purchasing this book, and you'll tell me about it. It's a very easy read as well, both for male folk and for women folk, right? Simplicity is a very important concept. Okay? And I'll just give you the thrust of it. I'll give you an example, right? This is, and I tell you, it's Rajab now, so we're preparing for the month of Ramadan, right? Personally, I've started this exercise about a year ago. I'm not done yet. I'm still decluttering and finding stuff that is cluttering my existence, that I don't really need, and it's a year on already, right? And I found one of the effective ways is getting rid of storage space, because the more storage space you have, the more you store what you don't need. Very problematic. So I'll give you an example what this lady talks about. She's actually part of a JDE, she's a decluttering expert. She stays in Japan now, but if you make a booking with her for today, right, she can only see you in a year's time, which talks about the need of decluttering, because we live in a material world. We're talking about the items within the home of the Prophet ﷺ and his wives. I mean, how much can you store in these chambers, right? So one of the things is, I gave example. If you come, when I looked at the house, and in my house, by the grace and mercy of Allah, one of our Canadian students who's currently residing in Turkey, he gave me a picture, a photo of what the Prophet ﷺ's house looked like. It's basically a constructed photo from different narrations that they've put together, and they created an image of what the Prophet ﷺ's house must have looked like. The example which the lady gives in the book is the following: that you come, is one of the incentives for you to declutter. You come, so you want to study, but your desk is cluttered. So in order for you to effectively study, you're going to declutter your desk. By the time you decluttered your desk, you're tired, you fall asleep. You wake up the next morning and you go and you don't do too well in terms of your exams. Had you come to a desk that was decluttered, you could have immediately focused on what's most important. So what happens is, cluttering takes you away from what you're supposed to focus on, and you focus on secondary thing as opposed to focusing on what you're supposed to focus on. Like you come to a desk to study, but now you declutter, and the cluttering causes you to declutter. But in essence, what is it? You're not focusing on your primary purpose. You're focusing on the secondary purpose. The Prophet ﷺ, his primary purpose in life was to call towards good and forbid from evil. If he had a lot of possessions like kings would have, then that would preoccupy him from fulfilling his primary role. I'll give you another example, but you need to be very responsible to understand this example, right? But I'm take a risk anyway, right? I'm not I'm just trying to impress upon you the importance of understanding the example, right? And not like cut and paste, because it doesn't necessarily apply to you, but the principle is true. This lady, she talks about doing this decluttering. So once you declutter your house, and everything in your house is basically functional, what do you have now? You have time to focus on things that really matter. And sometimes when you're preoccupied with the clutter in your life, you actually don't get a chance to focus on what's actually wrong in your life, because you're busy with the clutter. One of the ladies, and this is where I say about the responsibility, they went through this decluttering process, and when everything was decluttered and basically her life was now on track, it actually ended up in a divorce. You understand? Because when you take it all the what's in out of the way, then what happens is, now you actually know where you are at. And for this lady, moving on actually meant, otherwise her whole life would have been involved in the clutter, and she wouldn't have known that the actual problem in terms of my existence is what it is. Wallahu alam. You understand what I'm trying to say? This happened to the best of creation, the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. What happened on one day? He went out to inspect his horses. Now nobody had a kingdom like the kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salam. So what happens is, checking up on the horses preoccupied him, not from a fard act, from a sunnah act. And he was supposed to do like his daily litany, and he didn't do his daily litany. So what did he do? Because that material wealth preoccupied him from something which is more important. He made sadaqah of that, and he slaughtered those horses, and he gave them meat in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that dispensation, then meat was permissible to eat, horse meat. But you understand the principle. So what we look when we talk about Hujurat is a side point. I didn't really intend to mention this, but the Prophet ﷺ is Hujurat was a very simple, and we must come back to simplicity, really. And the idea of simplicity is not a compromise in terms of quality. No. The Prophet ﷺ, he had a few items, you can count it on your hands basically, but whatever item he had value to him, so much so that the Prophet ﷺ actually named it. So the idea is, for example, like the Prophet ﷺ, if I look at it, the Prophet ﷺ had an accessory. You know, you love accessories, don't you? That's why, as a result of your overwhelming love for accessories, we have a shop that's called accessorize. So you got all what you need, but you need a particular accessory. Now what happens is, would you agree with me that most of the accessories you have is useless? You spend thousands of rands, but it's useless. So what happens is, what is an accessory the Prophet had? He had a scarf. A scarf, an accessory. So now what do you do with the scarf? I travel with the scarf. When I travel with the scarf, I'm on the plane and I don't have a neck pillow, I put my, what's the name is my neck pillow. When we come to the airport and we need something to, I can't sleep on the floor, then I throw my scarf and I sleep on my scarf. If mealtime comes and we need to eat on something, I tell the family, please don't dirty the scarf, but we're going to eat on it, so it's thins out. We call it dastahan. It's our table cloth, basically, right? When I'm cold and I need to sleep on the plane and I don't want to take, your standard issue blanket, I want to be comfortable in my own blanket, then I use my scarf. It's an accessory, but it has great utility. This lady says that in terms of you can have a lot of accessories, but she says a pashmina scarf, good quality one, original, that can go almost with anything and it can serve multiple purposes. If you have one or two of those good quality ones, it takes the need away for you to have so many hundred things in your cupboard. You with me? So to declutter and to rid yourself of the stuff that you don't need and don't use, I'm telling you, it's a task. It's a massive task. But if you're able to liberate yourself from that, subhanallah, you can. Why do you need a lot of scarves? You don't. You really don't. And you can maybe start with that. Like you, on average, you probably have about, I would say, minimum 30 or something like that, or 20. Just as it is, when who wants to volunteer to say how much scarves they have, so I know I'm not shooting in the darkness. You don't know. Okay, so 2 cupboards full. You don't know means that there's so much that you can't count. So Ajib, a stack like that, like up and down and when are you going to wear all of that? You must get rid of it. If you can have 10 quality ones that you know that will wash well and you can wear it and it lasts long and it's not, like penny wise pound foolish, then that's the thing. You must rather go with that and take up space. Just as a practical example to tell you, maybe so we don't have cupboards in our house and we manage rails and shelves, that's it. You can survive very comfortably. I don't look too bad, don't I? The thing is strong, my jacket there, what else do I need? You know what I'm saying? So the Hujurat is, but that's a whole different discussion, inshallah, which I feel it's very important to have, man. You must own the goods mustn't own you. Now if you say, I can't get rid of the scarf owns you, you don't own the scarf. You understand? So we must detach ourselves and and very practically, and nobody's saying you must compromise on your comfort and your style and your, no, nobody's saying that. You got a whole lot of stuff that you're not waiting for, and then you keep the children's winter stuff for the next year and the next year and before. If you must maningel now and we must come for your inheritance, we don't know. Okay. So the Hujurah. So what were we speaking about? The Prophet ﷺ, and this was the Masjid Nabawi. And here's the mimbar of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says, بين بيتي ومنبري روضة من رياض الجنان. This is the not so much about the year, that would be the Rawdah. Tamam. So now what happens is, the surah is called Surah Al-Hujurat. Why is it called Surah Al-Hujurat? We did 3 things. Surah, why do we call it a surah? Makki or Madani, we said is Madani. And now it's called Surah Al-Hujurat. Why? They came a Bedouin, right? And he wanted to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they called from outside of his rooms, Ya Muhammad. You with me? Now what happens is that Bedouins, they, in Afrikaans they say Sulat maak and Sulat staan. You understand that phrase? Su gemaak and su galat staan. Okay, there we go. You know that this guy, he was, Allah created him like that, and he's just like that. So you have the Bedouins, they had that type of approach. They were just like that. So they come into Medina and they say, Ya Muhammad. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they would cringe, how can you, call the Prophet ﷺ like that? And number one is, the Prophet ﷺ not in front of you. You come and stand out of his house and shout, Ya Muhammad. Now, so this entire surah, it's named Surah Hujurat because of this particular event, and that leads us to the theme of the surah. And this surah, Surah Hujurat, is one of the, we need the entire Quran, but in today's time particularly we need Surah Hujurat, because what does Surah Hujurat talk about? The theme of Surah Hujurat is unity. But now what happens in terms of unity? In terms of unity, all of us we want unity, don't we? There's not a single one from amongst us that if you ask, do you want us to be united? We say, no, I want us to be disunited. But now what happens is all of us, and this dars is not for the one that you live at home, and this dars is for us, for you and me. This dars is for you and me. The words of Allah here is not for, my sister should have heard this, or my brother should have heard this, or my colleague should have heard this. No, this is that must first go into our ears. So we talk about we must be united, right? But those of us, you and I, as proponents of unity in theory, we do those actions which create disunity. On the one side we say we want unity, but you and I are guilty of doing those things that create disunity. So when it comes to unity, we want to maintain unity, the first thing is that we need to do those things that will create about unity. And the first thing is a conduct with our leaders. This Bedouin, he comes from outside and he says, Ya Muhammad. When he talks about Ya Muhammad and he addresses the leader of the Muslim community in a disrespectful way, addressing the leaders of the Muslim in a disrespectful way is undermining the unity of the Muslims. And now what happens is, if we thought that etiquette is a very small thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about etiquette in the very second, third verse, Allah says, if you don't have the proper etiquette, what's going to happen? An tahbata a'malikum, all the good deeds that you do, it's all going to fall away. So if we thought that etiquette and mannerisms is a small thing, it's okay. You don't have to worry about it. From an Islamic perspective, etiquette and mannerisms is not a small thing, it's everything. Because the verse is an tahbata a'malukum, that your deeds will be rendered null and void as a result of what? As a result of the constituent elements weren't met, as a result of the required conditions weren't met. No, you were praying diligently. No, you were fasting diligently. No, you were paying your alms tax diligently. You performed the lesser pilgrimage and the mild pilgrimage all diligently. What was the problem? As a result of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all of your actions are rendered null and void. It's not having the proper etiquette. Leave alone the proper etiquette amongst ourselves, but the proper etiquette in terms of the leadership. And it's a very important example for us. And if you look at Quran, you'd find it's actually a common theme within Quran. And to end off on this particular point, we're talking about the theme of Surah Al-Hujurat. The theme is unity. And the surah teaches us what actions constitute disunity. What actions compromises our disunity? The first action is undermining the leadership. You with me? Now, we just came from the class there, and that's why I'm saying it's not only a theme in terms of Surah Al-Hujurat, it's a common theme in terms of Quran. In Surah At-Tawbah, the hypocrites, when they wanted to attack the Muslims, the Muslim community, where did they address the attack? وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. There are of them who seek to harm the messenger. So if you undermine the messenger and you undermine the entire Muslim community, you with me? At the end of this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats undermining the messenger so seriously that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ. Give them glad tidings of a punishment. They're going to be punished because they're undermining the leadership. Look, in common constitutions and in common communities, the highest offense is what? Treason. Why is treason such a high offense? Because you're undermining the authority and you're going against the authority. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give them glad tidings of a punishment. But Allah defines that punishment. He says, Aleem, of a painful punishment. Why a painful punishment? If you harm any run-of-the-mill believer, you'll get punished. But if you undermine the leadership, what type of punishment do you deserve? Adabun Aleem, a painful punishment. You with me? So to end off, inshallah, Surah Al-Hujurat, the general theme is unity, and we're going to learn not about what creates unity, that is part and parcel of the surah, but importantly, particularly the second part of the surah, Allah is going to discuss those actions which bring about disunity. So we need to do things which brings about unity and stay away from those things which brings about disunity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the first thing that brings about unity is يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله, and we'll talk about that when we meet again inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.